Let us pray. Lions, feel free to keep handing things out. I understand now what you're doing. I didn't at first, but now I do. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks at this time of giving thanks for all of your many blessings to us, those that seem ordinary and mundane, and those that startle us with their beauty and their power. Thank you for all your gifts to us, and thank you for the opportunity that you have given us to share our resources with others, to be partners with those in our community who are seeking to bring about justice and freedom and peace and prosperity for all. We thank you especially this day for the ministry of the Episcopal Community Foundation and for their director, Lindsey. And we ask that this time together might inspire all of us on our journey to be agents of your goodness, your grace, and your love through Christ our Lord. Amen. So today we are so fortunate to have with us Lindsey Hardegree, who is a member of the Cathedral Parish of St. Philip, as well as Executive Director of the Episcopal Community Foundation. So those of you who are familiar with how we do outreach here at the Cathedral know that we love to foster partnerships with agencies, with foundations, with other groups that are already established doing good work throughout the community, the diocese, even the country and the world. We have some global ministries as well that we help support, and we hope to increase that ministry, particularly globally, in the coming years. But right now, we are here today to learn more about the ministry of a very local and feet on the ground sort of ministry, the Episcopal Community Foundation of Middle and North Georgia. This is an organization that partners with parishes and agencies and organizations throughout the diocese to help Episcopalians in the Diocese of Atlanta be able to reach out more to those in our midst who are struggling with economic insecurity, those who are working to overcome injustice and oppression. And the fund really empowers our communities, our parishes to work with, again, not in a sort of a noblesse oblige lording over, but to be partners with other community agencies that ECF helps fund. Give you just an example. Many of you know the ministry, the agency Lamastad, which is an organization throughout Metro Atlanta that partners with churches and schools and other organizations to provide after-school tutoring for Latino students in our public schools, students who oftentimes are the main English speakers in their household and don't necessarily have an adult at home who has the facility with English to help students with their homework. So the students come to places like the Cathedral of St. Philip, and they have after-school tutoring with, in our case, at the Cathedral here, their tutoring comes mostly from students at the Atlanta International School, which is another wonderful part of this partnership. But the students also receive a lot of nurturing and love and support, and their families do as well while they are here. Until this past fall, the beginning of this past fall, we were only able to offer this 2 times a week, 2 afternoons a week, the Lamastad program here at the Cathedral. But thanks to a grant that we partnered with Lamastad on, we were able to get $20,000 from, thanks to the graciousness and generosity of the Episcopal Community Foundation, to allow our students now from Garden Hills Elementary School to come here for tutoring and nurturing and support at the Cathedral 4 afternoons a week, which is a huge deal in their lives, in our lives. It's a huge deal for the community that we are building with those students. I don't want to hog the mic too much longer, but we are always happy for anyone who would like to volunteer with our Lamastad program, whether that's bringing snacks or spending some time playing with the kids on the playground and supervising that time, or whether you might like to be trained as a Lamastad tutor. So there are lots of different opportunities there. But what I want to do right now is introduce Lindsey Hardegree, who, as I said, is the Executive Director of the Episcopal Community Foundation for Middle and North Georgia. And I'm seeing fascinating things in her background. I'm going to let her tell you all more about herself, but she has served as special events and board manager for the coordinator for the Alliance Theater. And she is committed strongly to the nonprofit sector, volunteering with the Junior League of Atlanta and Lead Atlanta. She's co-founder of the Atlanta branch of, and this fascinates me, Bourbon Women Association. Now, I really would love to hear about what that is, but the Bourbon Women Association. And she's a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Greater Atlanta chapter. She was the founding board chair for the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network Atlanta, served chair for the 2017 YNPN National Conference, and she also serves on the board of numerous organizations here in Atlanta. And as I said, she is very active here in our parish, the Cathedral of St. Philip, although I know she does stay on the road promoting the good work of ECF a lot. So she's so without further ado, and please feel free to tell us more salient things that you would like to share about yourself and how it relates to your ECF, but we welcome you, Lindsey.
Appreciate it. Let's see. All right. Thank you so much, Julia. I appreciate that. I'm Lindsey Hardegree. I'm the Executive Director of ECF. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ECF, what our work is, kind of how we operate within our diocese. But I also want to make sure I let you know what you've got in your hands before we get going. So you've got a handout which describes kind of very, very brief overview of who we are. My contact information is down at the bottom of that, so that may be helpful to you as we move forward. But even more important than that is actually that little slip of paper that you've got for you to fill out your contact information. If all of you will put your contact info there at the end of the presentation, I'm going to collect all of those. I've got a box that we're going to put them in. We're going to give it a good shake. We're going to draw somebody's name out. One of my favorite things about my job is that I get to give money away. And so one of you will have the opportunity. ECF will give a $100 donation to the outreach ministry of your choice. So you guys get to give a little money away too. So just something fun for us to do as we kind of move along this morning. As Julia mentioned, we are a part of the Diocese of Atlanta. We're a local ministry. We're not a part of the larger Episcopal church necessarily. I don't have an office in New York, nor do I want an office in New York. So we really are here for the sole purpose of making sure that we are increasing ministry within the diocese and with all of the parishes in the Diocese of Atlanta. So that really is kind of at the crux of who we are and how we operate. Before we get too far into things, I've got a quick video to show y'all, which kind of outlines how we work within the diocese, and then we'll get into some of the details. So. Since we were founded, ECF has funded nearly $5 million in support of the outreach opportunities in our community.
Now we find ourselves at an important intersection in the life of Middle and North Georgia, where poverty is rampant. The mandate from Scripture is very clear about caring for the foreigner and the stranger in our midst. ECF's ability to generate funds from brothers and sisters around the diocese allows us to fulfill that mission.
The reality we're facing right now is one of more detention, more incarceration. There is a lot of people who are detained at the border and sent to Stewart. Huge need for them is just to have someone to visit them because their loved ones may be in North Carolina, maybe in like 8 hours away or more.
Our Refugio Ministry is working down by Stewart Detention Center to help the people who are in the Stewart Detention Center and have their families to come and visit them, to have lawyers come and help them with their cases.
Lodging is one of the main things we provide for families. We provide meals, we cook, we provide just a sense of support for the families. Thanks to the funds that we have received from Episcopal Community Foundation. Red Door Food Pantry is the outreach arm of Church of the Ascension in Cartersville, and they really work with their community around the issue of hunger.
The support from the Episcopal Community Foundation allowed us to do so much more than we initially thought. The truck really allowed us to take our mission here at our physical building and go out beyond Cartersville to the neighborhoods in Bartow County where the need was the greatest. We've used it in ways that we never would have imagined, and it really has expanded our capacity and our ability to serve.
So ECF's role is really to help parishes in our diocese to serve their own communities in the best way that they can. And there's a couple of different ways that we do that at ECF. One of them is that we offer grants, and that's probably what ECF is most well known for, is our grant-making program. And it allows us to be able to help parishes fund activities and outreach ministries in ways that they might not be able to do on their own. But the other side to that is that we also help parishes to grow their support, both in the current term and then also in the long term. We want to make sure that not only do we have the wonderful resources today for ECF to be able to provide, but for us to continue to build and grow that in the future.
ECF gives us an opportunity to not only share now, but to set up a situation where our heart and our giving can continue, in some cases, even beyond our physical death. And so the things that we care most about, the folks that we care most about, continue to be blessed by the generosity set up in our planned giving program.
They didn't make me feel like I was coming to mooch or anything like that. I mean, that was important to me because, I'm already down on my luck. I don't want to be kicked again while I'm already down,
We invite people to give, not because of guilt or obligation or shame or browbeating, but because this is who we are, this is what we do. When your cup overflows, we feel that you can't help but share.
If people want to give, they have it in their heart to give, God's leading them to give, they should do it. And the Episcopal Community Foundation is a great place to start.
ECF can't do this work without everybody in our diocese pitching in.
So we are asking you to join us. We're asking you to bring your dollars with our dollars and bring your hands alongside our hands, and let us serve this gospel that continues to give people life.
So just kind of a brief overview of who we are and kind of what our work is that we do in the Diocese of Atlanta. Our call to serve really is to help the parishioners in our diocese like you to live out your own personal call to love like Jesus. So our work is specifically shaped kind of to help people who are experiencing poverty and oppression in each of our communities, where our Episcopal parishes are not only serving people in need, but are also having the opportunity to have spiritual growth through the service that they are doing in their community. So that really is kind of at the core of what ECF is all about. We are, as I said, a ministry of the Diocese of Atlanta. We've been around since 1982. Our previous name was the Episcopal Charities Foundation. So if that name at all is familiar to you, same group, just a new name. We changed our name about 7 years ago. And like I said, our work that we do is in partnership with our parishes. And we do that through both providing funding and then also helping the parishes to be able to do fundraising as well. So there's kind of four kind of key pillars to the work that we do. Whenever we're working with our parishes, we always want to make sure that they are at the core of the work that we're doing. So while we do provide funding for nonprofits, it's always in partnership with one of our Episcopal parishes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. The grants that we provide are for our parishes to continue work in their own local communities across Middle and North Georgia. And so that is something that we prioritize, is what does that work look like, providing things that parishes might not be able to do on their own. So efforts around capital efforts or capacity building, different opportunities where a grant might help somebody to accomplish something they wouldn't be able to do just through their regular annual fundraising efforts. And then we also provide leadership, and so that's something that we are actively working on, is finding ways to continue to let Episcopalians know what are the issues that are challenging our communities and how can they be a part of the solution for that. What are some of the things that poverty looks like today that we might not have thought of? What are some of the oppressions that are around that people might not have kind of given voice to yet? So really looking for opportunities to make sure that we are serving as a leader in that area as well. And then, as I mentioned, we raise funds and provide opportunities for individuals in our parishes to give gifts to their parishes in ways that they might not be able to through a regular kind of annual stewardship campaign. And so that primarily looks like legacy giving. We are working with our parishes on those efforts. We do this by providing fundraising and administrative support for our parishioners to be able to make gifts to their churches so that they can establish a lasting legacy of providing that support for many years to come. The efforts that we kind of are supporting are maintained by Episcopalians from across our diocese who serve on our board of directors. We have a couple of parishioners from the Cathedral who are on our board, and that is a way for us to be able to provide kind of expertise and support for the parishes across the diocese, both small and large. What does that kind of look like? There are 117 worshiping communities in the Diocese of Atlanta. Only 3 of them have the resources to hire a staff person dedicated to fundraising. So we are incredibly blessed here at the Cathedral to have David Rocchio, who serves as our Director of Stewardship and Gift Planning, who is an immense resource and provides great support for our parishioners. But the majority of our diocese does not have a David. And so that really is where ECF kind of comes in and helps, is to say, all right, all of the other parishes who can't afford someone to help them with fundraising, how can we help them to increase their fundraising capacity and to be able to kind of solicit and secure those legacy gifts? So we really come to serve as that administrative and fundraising backbone there to help people in our different parishes. So it's one of those things where a lot of people say, oh yeah, you know, the clergy might be able to mount that kind of an effort. I promise you the clergy are not planned giving experts, nor would that be a good use of our time and money to train them in that way. For those of you who may have served on chapter, the chapter of the Cathedral, again, I've been a member of chapter 2, so it's one of those situations where we're really blessed that we have a fantastic staff that supports us. Most of the parishes, the vestries, are very, very small and do a lot of the work themselves. And because of that, this is not a really good effort for vestries to really own either. There's so much turnover. There's so much opportunity for volunteers to say, you know, what, did I leave somebody's planned giving form in a box in my basement in a house that I moved from 15 years ago? You know, it's just not a good, sustainable way for us to look at fundraising overall. And so ECF serves in that capacity for our parishes that need that help. So we really do operate like a community foundation in a lot of different ways. We are providing both that fundraising support as well as the ability for our parishes to kind of invest their funds together in a pool where we might be able to have greater returns than they would on their own in a smaller capacity. So some of the things that we're helping our parishes with, these are probably all things that are familiar to you. Some of these tools, these are also all things that if you see something that is interesting to you, you should talk to David about this, because these are all different ways that you can support the Cathedral directly. So there are things like including the parish in your will, or maybe giving an end-of-year gift through your IRA. A lot of different opportunities that are available that we work with our parishes on. And again, David's a great resource if you are interested in making this kind of contribution to the Cathedral directly. We also work, because we're a part of the Diocese of Atlanta, we're not only working with our parishes, but also those larger ministries that are a part of the diocese. So I know a lot of Cathedral parishioners are interested in supporting Emmaus House or Church of the Common Ground, those kinds of efforts. We can provide support for those ministries as well if you are interested in making a gift like this to one of those ministries. So that can be a way that we can work together to make sure that the things that y'all care the most about are continuing to be supported for many, many years. So one of the things I always like to talk about is should legacy giving be something that you're thinking about right now? And the answer is yes. The average age of the first bequest for most people, the average age is 52. I did not say 82, I said 52, which means that there are a lot of people younger than 52 who are already making bequests. This is something that everybody should be thinking about. It's a plan that you have in place to make sure that the things you've worked hard for in your life, you know where they're going to go and how they can support the things that you care the most about after you're no longer here to speak for those things yourself. It's one of those opportunities that every time there's some sort of big life change that happens, it's a great opportunity to reevaluate what that plan looks like. And so we sometimes think of some of the more sad things when we're talking about this. It might be the death of a spouse or something like that. But there are also a lot of happy reasons why you might reevaluate your plan. It might be the birth of a grandchild, or you're retiring, or there's, you know, an empty nester situation happening where you're not supporting people in the way that you were before. So really a great opportunity anytime one of those big life changes happens is to think through, what is my plan and do I have the church as a part of that plan? So again, this is something that I'm happy to talk with you about. If you're thinking about the Cathedral specifically, David's a great resource to be able to think through all of those things. And as I mentioned, if you are interested in supporting one of the ministries in our diocese, I can talk with you about those opportunities as well. So that's a big part of the work that ECF does, is around education for legacy giving for our parishes and providing that support. But then the other side of the work that we do, which is the part that's a little bit more sexy to talk about, death and taxes is not exactly the most fun thing, is really looking at our grants. And so I've got some information on here from our 2023 impact report. There are copies of that back there on the table if anybody's interested in taking a copy with them. It's also available for download on our website. But this is just what we've done this year as a part of ECF's grant-making opportunities. And so you can see this information from years past as well on our website. But we provide funding, like I said, to our parishes directly, as well as to nonprofits who partner with them, and also to diocesan ministries. You can see kind of an outline of the different grants that we gave in 2023 listed there on the right, as well as what those amounts were. So that's a way for us to kind of make sure, are we funding things across the diocese? Are we looking at opportunities that are, both in the north and in middle Georgia? Are we looking at Columbus? Are we looking at Athens? Are we funding everything in Atlanta and nothing outside of, or are we really distributing our funds equally? So that's a really great opportunity for us to kind of evaluate. We've also got a little bit of information about where do those funds go when we think about kind of topically what that looks like. So this past year, we've done a lot of funding around homelessness, as well as generational poverty and refugees and immigrants. We have kind of 6 big categories that we fund. You'll notice that human trafficking and that people impacted by the criminal justice system are not listed in this past year. We didn't receive any grants from those kinds of organizations, any requests. So that's actually a really great opportunity for all of you. If you know of organizations that are doing that kind of work in the community, that are interested in partnering with Episcopal parishes, there is funding available to them. It's one of those situations where we really do want to make sure that we're able to cover a lot of different topics and that we're able to kind of go deep in those places. And so with that in mind, we always do fund, we give priority funding to organizations we haven't funded before or haven't funded in a long time. And we also make sure that we are, again, spreading out our funding in a way that allows us to fund these different areas. So we're always looking for new partners. A lot of our parishes are interested in doing work in these areas and they don't know who to go to. So that's a really great opportunity, if you do know somebody who's working in some of these areas, to be able to help us connect the dots and make sure that they've got parishes that they can work with if that's something they're interested in doing. So what do our grants kind of look like? How does that work? This might be a little more information than anybody cared about, but it's one of those things I always get questions about. So I just like to kind of share all of the information. So we do provide grant funding twice a year. It's on a kind of an every 6-month cycle. Parishes can apply for that directly, or nonprofits can apply for that. If a nonprofit does apply, they are required to have a parish partner. And that's not just a letter of approval, kind of a stamp of, yep, we like them, you can use our name on their application. Parishes are actually very involved in the process. So there's a whole separate little application, a statement of support form that we require the parishes to complete to say, yes, this is an organization that we're working with. Here's what that partnership looks like. Here is how our parishioners are able to have spiritual growth through the service that they're doing with that particular partnership. It's something that we are invested in both on a financial level and a volunteer time level, as well as something we're talking about in our things like these forums that a lot of churches do, things that people talk about during Bible studies, or even sometimes things that are a part of a larger parish-wide initiative. So we really want to make sure that the work that is being done with an organization is not just good work that's happening in the community, but it's something that the parish is a part of as well. And so with that, the parish is required to be at the site visits that we do. So we have clergy representatives as well as volunteers who attend and are a part of that. So it really is kind of a joint application process for those entities. We also, like I said, we kind of have twice a year that we do this, every 6 months. It's a bit of a 2-step process. We do a letter of intent, which gives us an opportunity to not only say a first pass at, yes, this is something we think we might be interested in funding, let's continue on and get more information. But also, if you think about it, parishes in particular who are applying, there's not a lot of grant funding available for churches specifically. That's one of those things that churches often have a hard time getting whenever they're thinking about different funding opportunities. And what that means is that most churches have zero experience when it comes to grant writing. And that's okay. That's actually part of our ministry and working with the Diocese of Atlanta to work with all of our parishes. We don't expect that our parishes have grant writing experience, and a big part of our LOI process, that letter of intent, is to allow parishes to say, here's the thing we think we want funding for. And we say, we love that kernel, that seed of an idea that you've got. It needs some work. And we're not just telling you it needs some work, make it better. We're actually going to work with you one-on-one. So a lot of the work that I do with our parishes is actually saying, let's figure out how this program can best serve both your community as well as the community outside of your church walls. And how can we position you guys to receive this funding in the best way that we possibly can? So it really is kind of a connection and a one-on-one that we do with them. We often get feedback that the work that we've done with a parish on their application process helps them to make a better program, helps them to evaluate metrics in ways that they wouldn't have thought of otherwise, and actually sometimes can even position them to receive funding from other entities and organizations that they hadn't even considered because they hadn't gone down this thought process. So it really is kind of a robust process that we go through. And again, we prioritize funding our parishes over nonprofits, but nonprofits can receive funding if they've got a parish partner. So that's kind of some of the nuts and bolts of how all of that works. We are accepting applications right now for our letters of intent right now for our fall cycle of grants for next year. And so those are due on March 31st. So we definitely have some time. If you know of an organization that might be a good opportunity to partner with a parish, let me know. We can talk with them and figure out if there is something there so that they can get something in if they're interested. Like Julia mentioned, we actually have recently had a grant that has gone through in partnership with the Cathedral. Your handout's got a little bit of information about that partnership with La Amistad, as well as a grant that we did a few years ago around the homeless requiem. So really, this is something that all of the parishes in our diocese can benefit from, both the small parishes and the large parishes. And we do like to keep things kind of spread out. So we don't typically fund things twice at the same parish year over year. We have a bit of a waiting period. And one of the ways that we kind of ensure that we've got equitable practices when it comes to that grant making is actually through our board of directors. So our board of directors is comprised of kind of two key groups of people. One of them is convocation representatives from across the diocese. So if you've ever been to our annual council or anything like that, you might be familiar with the convocation system. Basically, it's a way for us to say, here are all of the parishes in our diocese, and let's subdivide them geographically so that we've got representation from each of those different areas across our geographic reach. And so we have a representative from each of those 11 convocations on our board, which makes sure that we are funding things equitably when it comes to kind of that geographic standpoint. There's a big kind of thought process in the diocese that if there is money to be had, it's going to stay in Atlanta. And we want to make sure that that's not the case. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to receive this funding, that the things that are happening in Columbus, the things that are happening in Milledgeville, the things that are happening in Rome are just as important as what's happening here in Atlanta. And so that's one way that we help to make sure we've got equity across the diocese is through those convocation representatives on our board. But then the other half of our board are at-large members who serve based on their kind of subject matter expertise and the things that they can bring to the table when it comes to that. So like if you think about kind of overall how all of this works, let's say we're going into a parish, we're going somewhere small, we're up in, Dalton or something like that, and parishioners are interested in making a planned gift. They don't know how to do it. We've got the paperwork and the forms. We can talk with them and help them figure that out. And then they've got questions. And they're not questions that Lindsey, nonprofit professional, can answer. They're questions that we need an estate attorney for, or someone with financial planning experience, somebody who's got some of these expertise areas as a part of the work that they do day in and day out for their careers. And so that is where our board of directors really comes in and is very helpful. We have people who have those different levels of expertise, whose jobs are things like serving in a wealth management practice, or people who are estate attorneys, people who work in larger nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity International and help with planned giving there, those different levels of skills. And they are Episcopalians in our diocese who see part of their service to the church as working with ECF to help these other parishes. So I don't have to go and say, all right, we're in this really small town somewhere in Georgia. Who is the estate attorney y'all work with so we can get this question answered? I don't need to find 117 different estate attorneys to get a question answered. I can have one who is able to provide us with that information and help our parishioners to be able to understand what their choices and their options are. So really, that's a huge part of our board of directors' work, is to be able to serve as that knowledge base for the entire diocese. It's a great opportunity for people who are looking for a way to kind of give back, who have some of those knowledge and skills. We actually have several board members who are going to be rolling off. We've got term limits, and so they're people who are leaving at the end of December that I'm very sad are leaving, but I can't ask them to stay. And so we do have a few vacancies that are going to be coming up for next year. So if you're looking for a way to get involved, or if you know somebody who's looking for a way to get involved in something that's really, really meaningful, this might be an opportunity. In particular, we're really looking for people with kind of that wealth management, financial planning experience, and also some people with some communications experience. And so those are things that we're actively seeking out right now, if you or someone you know might be interested. One of the things that I love hearing from our board members is how they really feel as though the work that they're doing on the ECF board is spiritually helpful to them as well. They get so excited talking about the different opportunities we have for funding grants. Some of our board members actually go out to the site visits and have the opportunity to talk one-on-one with the applicants. So it really is an interesting and exciting opportunity to hear what all's happening across the diocese in a way that you wouldn't be able to any other way. So that is a lot of information that I have just shared with y'all. Y'all may have questions. You may say, you know what, we're still like in turkey hangover here and have nothing to think about. I didn't want to give you guys like a whole hour's worth of material, because I know that it's something that's, you're all probably really tired right now. But I'd love to have any questions, or if there are things you want to know a little bit more about, things I can elaborate on, please let me know. It's just kind of, yeah, Thee. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. So the way that we kind of look at the whole slate of who are we funding and how do we make those decisions, we're really thinking about where are there opportunities that are both going to serve people who are in need, people that, whether that's providing meals for people, providing housing, providing services, whatever that might look like. We're looking for opportunities that are going to be able to serve people, but then also provide spiritual growth for the Episcopalians who are part of that effort. So that's kind of the first lens that we look at. And I would say that actually what you're describing would fit in with that. That very much feels to me like something that's an important kind of knowledge piece where it comes to what does that spiritual journey look like. The next thing that we look at is where can our dollars be used in a way that's kind of strategic, so that an organization that might not be able to provide funding for a particular thing or effort, we can come in and help, because we're not going to fund things year over year at the same organizations. So we don't really provide operating support for a lot of these organizations. That we're not a good sustainable funding source for that. It's not that we think that operating is not important. It's that we want you to provide funding for that through more sustainable ways of giving. So let us come in and help with these pieces that frees up dollars for you then to be able to fund your operations through the regular fundraising efforts. So that often looks like capital needs. So we've done renovations, we've provided equipment, we've provided vehicles, those kinds of things, or capacity building. And that can look like a lot of different things. We've done software implementations, we have done kind of consulting services for a particular strategic effort, those kinds of things where it's a one-time expense that's a large amount of money that can then for years have some impact. So it would just simply be a matter of, is there that kind of a project that y'all are working on that we might be able to then work at? And then the last kind of lens that we look at here is, what does the parish partnership look like? So there are a lot of organizations that are doing really phenomenal, fantastic work, and it's not that that's not work that we're willing to fund, it's just that we're specifically focusing on helping to augment what the parishes themselves are able to provide. So if there's a particular parish in any of those places that y'all are doing work, which as you were naming them, I'm like, I know which parish is there, I know which parish is there. If it's something that you're doing in partnership with one of our Episcopal parishes, that would be a great opportunity for us to look at funding. So.
We have a racial healing program page on the website. And occasionally, as circumstances occur,
Right.
we'll do some, like a pilgrimage from Montgomery Alabama to Legacy.
Yeah. Jonathan Daniels, yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if it's one of those things that kind of, as you're thinking about what are the things y'all are going to be doing over the next year or so, just call me and we'll say, all right, here's what it is. Do any of these feel like a good opportunity? And if the answer is no, then maybe next year there will be something. That's another thing that we really do try to focus on, is making sure that if there are parishes that are interested in working with us and are trying to do this kind of work, we will help them to figure out how can they have access to the funding. It's not a come and impress us and we will then give you some money. It's, okay, if y'all have a heart to do this kind of work and there is interest within the parish, let's talk through what that might look like and how can we structure something. So sometimes I have conversations where a grant application doesn't hit my desk until 3 years later, because we talk about it and then they go back and they do some work and then we talk about it some more, and it kind of slowly develops until it's ready. But we're committed to being a part of that process to help people getting to ready as a part of our work. So, yeah. Other thoughts or questions?
The diocese the same? Is that your boundaries?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So if you've ever seen the map that shows the outline of the diocese, that is us. Now, that being said, a great example of how that can be a little fuzzy sometimes, Stewart Detention Center that you saw in the video is actually not within the Diocese of Atlanta. It's ever so slightly south of that. But the parish that they partner with is one of our parishes. And so that's one of those things where we say, how are the parishes doing the work? What do they consider to be their community? And we'll look at it that way. We're not particularly looking for things that are kind of that larger global look. A lot of the parishes in the diocese have, for instance, partnerships with parishes in Haiti or something like that. And that's just not where our focus is, but we are looking at where the parishes themselves are interested in serving, and that's how we look at it. Yeah.
So do you have sister organizations in other dioceses across the country, and how do you all interact?
Yeah.
Do you get money from the diocese directly?
So it's an interesting thing. No, we don't. So we are the only ministry of the Diocese of Atlanta that is not a part of the Diocese of Atlanta annual budget, which I'm not 100% sure how we got to that point. It was a decision that was made before I was hired. But the way that our organization is a part of the diocese is similar to Emmaus House or Church of the Common Ground or the Absalom Jones Center. All of those different entities are ministries of the diocese, and they do each have a portion of funds from the diocese that they receive. Our funding comes directly from our endowment, which was established back in '82 at annual council. And so that's where our kind of funds come from, and through contributions from Episcopalians each year. So that's kind of where we are within that structure. As far as outside of our diocese, kind of relationships and things like that, it's really interesting. When I first started in this position, I think I pulled up every single diocesan website in the Episcopal Church, trying to find something else like what we were doing so that I could at least call them and kind of resource share, and how are y'all doing this? And I didn't find anyone who was working like this. And anytime I've been in some of those larger contexts, in kind of the larger Episcopal Church world, when I talk about the work that we do, every single person says, oh my gosh, I wish our diocese had something like that. So it's a really interesting kind of arrangement that we've got, and I wish that there were more resources across the diocese for us to be able to kind of work together, because the same as each of our parishes not needing a new planned giving form, the grant-making process could look very similar from our diocese to any other diocese. But it's one of those situations where I just haven't found that in the other places. So I'd be very interested if another diocese wanted to talk to me, but it's just an interesting kind of little gem that we've got.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
So what explains the wealth source? So distinctive. How did
The endowment.
diocese, how did we endow something
Yeah.
that apparently the rest of the church hasn't figured out how to?
Right. So I can tell you what I have kind of read through in old annual council minutes, because to be perfectly frank, the endowment was established 2 years before I was born. So my knowledge is somewhat limited. But from what I can gather, and from talking to some people who were kind of at the table when it happened, at the time there really was a need specifically around funding for organizations that were working with people who had HIV and AIDS. And so that was a need back in 1982 that the church was trying to figure out, how can we respond to this? And so ECF was actually originally set up for that particular issue, but the people who were structuring it were very wise in the way that they structured it, and acknowledged that this is the current oppression that we are experiencing, but there will always be an oppression, there will always be poverty. And so let's structure this so that this fund provides grants to whatever it is that is the current need of the church to be able to support. And so that's the way that they originally established that endowment. And there were a few different places that the money came from. I know that there were some specific campaigns that happened. There was a book, Purple Ink, if you've ever seen that written. The sales from that book went towards the endowment. And so that's what kind of got it started. And then over time, the board of directors for ECF has had the purview to say, all right, if we're looking at poverty and oppression, what does that mean right now? And where can we respond that will provide the greatest support for the greatest need? So that was kind of the original inception of it, and it's grown significantly since then. So
Add to that, for folks who may not be aware, that the Diocese of Atlanta is one of the largest and best resourced dioceses in the country, in the Episcopal Church. A lot of people it's funny, people who come here to the Cathedral, maybe from another tradition, or to the diocese from another tradition, are not always aware that we are really unusual in terms of how well resourced we are, how many people we have. The average Episcopal parish across the country is much, 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 much smaller, does not have near the financial resources we have, and the same is true at the diocesan level as well. So we're very fortunate in that regard.
yeah. And just like to take off my ECF hat and put on my Cathedral parishioner hat, the Cathedral's a big part of that. The
Right.
wonderful resources that we have here at the Cathedral are a really big part of how the diocese is able to be so wonderfully resourced, not just from a financial standpoint, but also training up people who are coming out of seminary who then go and serve in other parishes, and people who grow up and are kids here in this parish who then go be vestry members at other places in the diocese. So the Cathedral really does play a really big role in how the diocese's health looks overall, which I feel like we can be proud of. So yeah.
Do you ever receive or offer grants to, say, a non-faith-based group, say a startup group that wants to, say, to start a project with the homeless that isn't there if it has merit? Or do these all come through the Episcopal or church-based?
Yeah, I would say that maybe not even the majority, maybe 100% of the nonprofits that we provide grants to are not faith-based. They are partnered with our parishes, but then in and of themselves, they are not a faith-based organization. And actually, that's something that we find to be a powerful thing. That's a plus on our perspective, is that the work that needs to happen in the communities isn't necessarily faith-based work. The faith communities should be supporting it and should be a part of that, but it's work that we should all be just, on that kind of, as human beings level, it's stuff that we should all be working on. So most of the work that we fund has nothing to do with religion whatsoever, other than the fact that Episcopalians are a part of it.
That's the case with Lama Spot,
Yeah.
for example. Yes, it is.
So, yeah. Kind of, yeah. So we kind of see two different kinds of applications. Sometimes it's we've been working with this organization for 20 years. They're a fantastic partner of ours. We want to do something new with them or expand what we're doing with them. We would like a grant for that. And sometimes it's, this organization is someone that we have never worked with before, but there is huge opportunity for us to work together. And here's all of the different things that we're thinking of, and we need funding to get that started. And we fund both of those different opportunities. It's not so much that we need like the church's approval as we want the church to be a part of it. It has to be something that is, it's truly a partnership, not just oh yeah, we cut them a check once a year and that's that. It's something where just as important for us as serving people is also finding opportunities for Episcopalians to have that spiritual growth through their service with the opportunity. So, yeah. Yeah, so Holly actually has worked at several organizations over the years that have received ECF funding, and then Julia also knows a lot about how we've done the funding with the organizations here at the Cathedral, so both of them can be resources if you're curious to hear kind of what that side of the equation looks like. So, yeah. You want to just kind of name the ones that you've been a part of?
St. David's in Roswell has worked with the Drake House when they were working on transitional housing for homeless women and children, and that was to actually build or refurbish apartments so 32 families could have a place to stay. So that gift was given probably more than 5 years when you started.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, that was 2017 maybe?
Oh yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that gift, it keeps giving. So, the homeless crisis keeps continuing. Another grant we had was Northwood Community Charities. That was one where we also had to partner with the Episcopal Community Foundation and St. Aidan's Church. They had not really been involved. They had a will to help us get a food storage center, which allowed more people to serve in the food bank, and then more people could get food. But we also had to come up with a match. So the match was 1 for 1. So that helped us raise more money. So that's important to think about. And then currently with Must Ministries, it was a van that helped deliver food. 11 food mobile pantries and 100 schools in Cobb County receive the impact from the Episcopal Community Foundation. So they do great work. We partner together. I have been a partner with many of the groups, and I call it being under the firing lines, but when we work with the Episcopal Community Foundation and the diocese and the parishes, it gives everybody the opportunity to serve, and just through Christ's eyes and hands, that's what we get to do. So I just want to know that it's always been great to see Lindsey and work with her. So lots of good words.